So has everyone out there heard of Angular before? Raise a show of hands. All right. How many people actually use Angular? Have used it a little bit? Maybe say you're a beginner. All right. How many intermediate? Experts? All right. Wow. I want to talk to you all because I feel like I'm still learning every day with Angular. Like the previous speaker said, I mean, I feel like there aren't very many Angular experts out there. So this is a humbling talk in many ways. It's just an attempt to share some of the stuff that I've done with real-time Angular lately in a service called PubNub. And the title of the talk is Zero to Real-Time AngularJS in 60 Seconds. I was talking to someone earlier, and they were saying 60 seconds. That's a tall order. This is a little bit like a cooking show where a lot of prep work has gone in behind the scenes, and so hopefully you can reap the benefits of that work. Load up the example in CodePen, follow along, and tweak some of the examples if you have a machine. If you don't, this QR code will get you to the speaker deck presentation, and there's a bunch of links in here. So don't dismay if you're not mobile or connected right now. You'll get there. And also, the 60 seconds isn't the start to finish. It's 60 seconds within this talk. Otherwise, you'd just be sitting around for 19 minutes. And I wouldn't want to do that to you. So, who am I? I just want to give you a tiny bit of background. I'm an all-stack engineer. I didn't like the term full stack because it implied there's only one stack. So I do a little bit of everything. I'm trying to be technology agnostic. I worked before at Amazon in a company called Ning that was doing social networks. And right now, working for a team called Sunny Cloud, and we're a small A team that you can call on when your projects need rescue or to build any cloud services, web and mobile applications you need. And we're hoping to change the world and the way businesses build applications. So first off, take these. These are the links that will let you follow along. The first one is a single-page CodePen. So that's if you like everything in one HTML file. It's 99 lines. I want to keep it lightweight. And you'll find the head will have all the script tags you need. The body will contain the HTML. And there's a script tag in there that contains all the AngularJS code that you need. And then there's another CodePen, which is sectional, which uses the CodePen feature of separating your HTML from your script and your CSS, so you can play with it a little more nicely if you enjoy that. There's a blog entry that goes along with this if you enjoy that. And if you want to take this demo and turn it into a bigger example on your own, you can sign up for a trial of PubNub and just put in your subscription keys instead of these, so the demo key, and you'll be off and running in no time. Any questions before we go on? Did anyone actually try it and have it work? Try the CodePen? All right, I tried it before this, so it should still work before this.
What's security on the
Oh, it's power to the user. Yeah. And this is what it should look like if everything's working. This is the CodePen. And you can change the HTML live and have the changes reflected down below. So this is our little chat application that we'll be working with. And this is the HTML that you can update live. I'm a big fan of CodePen. It's really cool for prototyping small stuff. Why is real-time important? Does anyone recognize this web page? This is Amazon circa 1990, what? 95, 94, yeah. Pretty ridiculous. I don't want to count how many years ago that was, but I know. I'm just not going to say it out loud because that'll make it real. And this is what Amazon's doing now. I'm not advertising Amazon, but I'm just saying I'm trying to show how the game has changed. This is a real-time web application. This is probably a native Android application. They probably got it together. But the lines are blurring every day. If you want to support embedded video, bidirectional communication, that's all possible now through these tools. Users expect messages to come in instantaneously. And through this talk, hopefully you'll get a glimpse of why that's important, how you can use it in a little way, and then be able to dive deeper when the time comes. So the way I think things are changing is that I believe applications must be customer focused. So I mean, I don't know how many of us build, have a huge budget to build toy applications, but usually they have to be sold or purchased by somebody. So you need to keep customers happy. Everybody's asking for it to work on every device out there and every browser. I mean, does anyone work with device interoperability and responsive sites? It's not easy. It's getting easier. It's getting possible. And then live updating when users are on the move, on Wi-Fi, on mobile data, to be able to track location, create location-aware applications. iBeacon is coming out and becoming more widespread. So these are all technologies that are changing the game. And we haven't used our 60 seconds yet. We're getting there. So what we're creating for this demo application is an application that is real-time chat. It supports user presence, so you can see who's online, and it stores your message history for the channel in the cloud. And it's 99 lines of HTML and JavaScript. If there's any CoffeeScript users out there, you could probably shave another 15 lines off of that. And if you start using some HAML, you cut the HTML in half, which is really nice. So what does the application do? We're subscribing to a real-time channel, displaying a list of online users, showing a list of recent messages, and providing the capability to publish messages to a channel. That's chat. The most minimal example I can show of chat. And this is what it looks like. My bootstrap skills are not all that elite just yet. So you'll see some artifacts of that in this UI. But I also didn't want to add too much CSS. But if you're a CSS wizard or less or whatever, Sass, whatever you choose, you can make this look awesome. And if you use Famous, you can add 3D animated stuff. If you haven't checked out Famous, check that out too, because it's pretty cool for 3D animations. Is it okay if I dive into the HTML? Okay. So at the top of the HTML document, in this 99-line file, we have some script tags. You have to include the PubNub data stream network. So this is just giving you the JavaScript library to access that. Include the AngularJS, of course. Include the PubNub AngularJS adapter library, and then include bootstrap styles, even though I'm not really making tremendous use of them here just yet. They're there if you need them, and support responsive design and all that goodness. The next part, does anyone recognize these Angular directives, ng app? Probably used it before. That's just identifying the application that you're using. And your controller, which I've just named chat CTRL, following a pattern. There's probably a million patterns out there. But that's the one that I just used for this example. And there's only one controller in this example. Everyone on board so far? It's a div with a controller as part of an application. Okay. Can folks in the back read this text? Okay, the code? All right, awesome. So we've got an ng repeat directive. Hopefully folks are cool with ng repeat. We're just defining a variable called user to iterate over the user's array, and then we're just displaying the username. That's a gimme. You all should be comfortable with that, hopefully. I think it's in the same Angular tutorials. Next one's a little more complicated. So we're creating a form. We're binding this text input as the chat message input. So the ng model attribute is new message. And then we are just providing a button called send to call the publish function when the user clicks the link. Everyone following along? Okay, cool. Next thing is just iterating over some messages. So we have a messages collection in the scope, and that's it. Okay, now we'll get to the JavaScript. So here's our application declaration. We're saying that it depends on the PubNub Angular service. That's just an arbitrary string. If you've depended on services or directives before, you're probably familiar with this guy right here, the section where you declare your dependencies. Yours is probably way longer than this if you're using a lot of useful stuff. And then we're just declaring the controller and starting to declare a function to handle that. And I'll get to why we have root scope in a minute. I'll talk about that. Okay. The next part is within this controller, we want to set up some data. So when you think Angular, when you think controller, the mantra I have is the controller sets up data and functions in the scope for the view to bind to or to display. So here we're setting up three variables that we'll use. The user ID, which we generate randomly when the page loads, in your application, you would probably set it to data returned by an authentication routine or something like that. The channel is just called the Angular channel. And then we set up a messages array that's just going to be the messages displayed in the application. The next part, we need to initialize the PubNub library for communications, and we want to make sure that only happens once, and that's why we bring in root scope. In addition to another reason, we want to set that PubNub has been initialized. So this is an ugly global, but it's only in this one spot, so hopefully it can stay compact for you all. And so for this purpose, you pass in the subscribe key, which is demo, publish key demo for your application. If you don't want to share it with the thousands of other users out there demoing this at the same time, then you can get your own publish and subscribe key. And we use root scope so that the initialized state is persisted across controllers. Next step is to subscribe. So chat, you can think of chat rooms as channels. And so we use the PubNub service, and we call ng-subscribe with passing the channel as an argument. And so this says establish a real-time connection to the PubNub network. So we want to receive events in real time that are published to this channel. Everyone following along so far? In the chat room, we're hooking up our controller to receive those events. Okay. Next up, here's our publish function. So the PubNub library has a publish function that you can use to send your data. And that's not just a string, it's a structured JSON document. So let's say you're propagating video game state, or you're propagating your Nest home thermostat, or whatever Internet of Things device you might be propagating today. You can send that all over the stream, and the library takes care of the serialization and deserialization for you. So in this case, we actually are just sending a regular string. We're just putting the user ID in square brackets followed by the message, and resetting the message to the empty string so that after we send the message, we just clear it out so that so it's ready for the user to send a new message. Everyone following along? And so this, we're binding up a function in the scope so that we can then attach it to the ng submit handler in the form. Hopefully that resonates. Okay, and so this may be counter to the directive philosophy. This is more of an event-based model. So here, we're using Angular's event propagation system. So we put an event watcher on. So we use rootscope.$on. And then the name of the event is given by this helper function. So we take the channel, turn it into an event name. So that's just doing some string concatenation with a prefix so it doesn't collide with anything. And then we have a callback function. And within that, we are pushing the new message onto the messages array. Everyone following? And because of the trickiness of Angular scopes and the digest loop and everything, we need to put this within a scope.apply or call it scope.apply after it so that the changes to the array are updated. Because there isn't any easy way to notify Angular of that. I think with some of the newer JavaScript ways, there's ways to have observers on objects. So that may, these scope.applies may go away in the future, but for backwards compatibility, it'll probably be necessary for a little while. Everyone following so far? So those are the message events. Presence events are the same thing. And the PubNub library, when you subscribe to a channel, behind the scenes, it keeps track of all the presence events that are coming from the server. So as people join and leave, its internal model of the channel membership is being updated. So all you need to do when a presence event comes in is just retrieve that list of users from the PubNub library, and then you can use that to display a nice handy list. And of course, you have to put that into a scope apply so it's reflected properly. Sure.
You retrieving the whole list or just the next, whatever's current?
The question is, are you retrieving the whole list or just what's current? At this time, it's retrieving the whole list. But if you wanted to, you can actually look into the payload of this event, tell whether it's a join or a leave, and then update it. The thing about doing that is, for efficiency, you probably want to put it into an object, and I had to fit it within 99 lines of JavaScript, or else I wouldn't have been able to make the cut for this presentation. And then here's 2 bonus features. Because you use the PubNub service, you get the here now function, which lets you not need to listen to all the presence events to bootstrap the list. You'll retrieve that list from the server immediately, so you can pre-populate it when you log on. And then the history function retrieves the message history. I was a little confused at first, between presence and messages. So the presence events, just think of those as the users joining and leaving. In your case, they may be devices or machines on a network. You may be controlling your cloud computing cluster using this WebSocket type stuff or whatever. So the history and the here now functions will let you do that. And you're done. I don't know. Do you think you got your money's worth, hopefully? Thanks so much. Did I stay within the time? Wow.
Yeah.
20 minutes.
We've got a couple extra minutes.
Okay. Last thing I wanted to talk about is just sort of the experience of building this service. I struggled with service versus directive. They both have their pros and cons and tie your hands in interesting ways. I went with service for now because I could map onto the event model. There's a new feature of PubNub called data sync, which lets you synchronize objects. And so that may be more like a directive where you're displaying this object within your application and it's receiving updates all the time. So that may fit the directive model a little more. So I'll be taking a look at that. The other thing was using root scope versus scope. How far into global scopes do we want to go? And then a few other tidbits. If you're interested in, just come up to me after, and if you're interested in this kind of stuff, I have t-shirts or whatever if you're interested. Any questions? Wow, I explained it all.
I'm just kind of curious. So what's happening on the is it PubNub?
PubNub. Yeah, on the server side, so they're a global real-time data stream network. So they have this global network of this global collection of data centers running close to your applications. So they're in AWS, they're in other cloud providers. And so when a user's browser connects to them, it's located based on geography to the closest data center. When data centers fail, the connections automatically fail over. They're secure their persisting messages, events in memory. So it takes a lot of the heavy lifting. And that's another thing I forgot to mention that's really cool is you can build applications now where it's just static files that you're hosting in a CDN and then referring to services like this. And it's a lot easier than in the past building a whole back end and scaling WebSockets and stuff like that. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Are you using PubNub for anything in production right now for yourself, or?
I'm playing with it a little bit for controlling Amazon Spot instances. So, has anyone used AWS EC2 before? How do you feel about Spot instances if you use them? Many people say they're great, they're super cheap, but they can be killed at any moment, and they come in and out. So that's my toy example that I'm trying to grow right now is having machines as they come up register with the PubNub channel. All the communications are encrypted, and then they're easy to control, and they just join and leave, and you can send messages addressed to a device on their channel. That's my working application. And I'm doing some work with other JavaScript frameworks too, I won't say their names, but other popular JavaScript frameworks that aren't as good as Angular. Any other questions?
Just one more time there's only one controller, so why did you feel you needed to use root scope? Couldn't you have just done scope on?
For this example, you're absolutely right, but I built a library to support applications where there's like a login screen. And
It's just to check online.
Yeah, so in the blog entry, I believe it links to the example where there's a view to log in, and then the login is what actually, because that's where you're getting the user identity. Right. So you have a login controller, and that directs you, like location of app equals your chat room, and it goes there. So you need the PubNub initialization to survive that that switch, and also the events. That was the other interesting thing is that when you do rootscope.broadcast, it lets you have multiple controllers on the screen they're being updated. So if you have a dashboard application, they can both use the same event stream and maybe filter them or do something like that. So, but I like the idea of reducing root scope. So in the future I may find a way to try and get that out of there if possible. I don't love it. Any other, does that cover it in terms of time? Yeah. Thank you so much.